this. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give it a second as people are entering and their audio is turning on. Welcome to our NAFA webinar, November NAFA webinar. We've got one more to do this year yet, coming up in December in a couple weeks. We've got 283 people registered for this one, so this should be a good one. All right.
No pressure.
No pressure, Kevin. All right, Kevin the Jam here. All right. Got about. I'm gonna wait till that 100 mark hits. Oh, somebody's raising a hand. Beth's got a question already. All right. If you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A area. If you've just want to make some general commentary, throw tomatoes, you can do that in the chat. But you otherwise go ahead and ask any kind of technical questions in the Q&A panel. If you got any technical issues, problems, anything like that, you can message me directly or via the chat, and I'll keep an eye out for those. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We got 96 people in the room. Thanks so much for joining. This is the NAFA webinar, November NAFA webinar, Commercial Offices and Best Practices and Guidelines for Air Filtration. Now, we've done a lot of webinars, especially during lockdown and during the pandemic, but we've never done a webinar focused in on one of our best practices and guidelines. So this is a great one to start because many of us do work at home, but a lot of us still go into the office every day. So we all breathe air. We all have that in common. So this is a great one to understand for if you're a building owner or a facilities manager. You know, Kevin's going to help you understand how important it is to have some guidelines for this particular air filtration HVAC application. So first of all, just want to let you know who is putting this on. This is the National Air Filtration Association. We're a trade organization of about nearly 400 companies, manufacturers, and distributors. We have a couple of annual conferences. This is a great place to do business around air filtration and indoor air quality. So we hope you'll come find us at nafahq.org. Just a couple testimonials from a recent member survey. This can't get a better commercial than your own members saying nice things about you. So whether it's for networking, education, and keeping up with the latest trends in air filtration, this is the place to be. If you want to follow us, you can do that on most of the normal spots like Facebook and LinkedIn. We do have a podcast. In fact, we've been releasing these webinars on our podcast, some of our other presentations from our conferences. You'll find some great content there, as well as interviews there. So go to this. You can grab your phone and hover over that. That'll take you right there. Or if you just search for the NAFA Talking Air Filtration, you should find us. And so we'd love if you would subscribe and listen and enjoy that. Okay, with that, thanks so much for listening to our NAFA commercial. Now we're going to hand it over to Jim Moran, certified air filter specialist. Jim is going to be our moderator and going to introduce Kevin. So Jim, take it away.
Absolutely. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jim Moran. I am with Permatron, who is a long-standing member of NAFA. I'd like to quickly give a thank you to NAFA as a whole, and then, of course, a special thank you to Tony for all of his work in getting this set up. A lot of work goes into this behind the scenes, and Tony is just instrumental in getting this all set up, so we appreciate that. And then another special thank you, of course, to Kevin Delahunt of BGE Solutions. This obviously wouldn't be possible to do this without him. So thank you, Kevin, for agreeing to do this. For those of you that don't know, Kevin is the lead author of these guidelines, and I am very excited for him to share his knowledge today. As Tony mentioned briefly before, if anybody has any questions, please use the Q&A button, and we will get to as many of those as we can by the end of this. We do have some time set aside at the end for Q&A. So with that, I will turn it over to Kevin, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tony. due to some technical difficulties, Tony's going to advance the slides. So if you hear me say advance, that means he's actually advancing them. So onward and upward, Tony. So just a little bit about BGE. We've been around for longer than 50 years. It's a family-owned company headquartered in Edmonton, Alberta, with 8 branches across Western Canada. And our purpose is to deliver clean, healthy indoor air environments, very similar to NAFA's position. So, okay. Advance, Tony. Our mission statement is to be the global source for an expertise. This is NAFA's mission statement, sorry, to be the global source for expertise, education, and best practices in air filtration. Okay. And today we're going to review the NAFA recommended practices for commercial offices. And this, I originally gave this presentation at ASHRAE last February in Las Vegas. So if you happen to be at that one, it's going to be very similar to the one I gave last February. Okay. The best recommended practices, let me just establishes air filtration guidelines for the removal of particulate contamination for the protection of the air handling equipment and components, as well as providing comfort and healthy environment for all who will live, work, visit, and play in these facilities. Okay. So the NAFA commercial guideline was originally published in 2012. We updated in 2021. And it offers guidance that was somewhat different than what other industry associations were saying and the general population were hearing at the time. We use a system and application approach, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit. And at that time in 2012, MERV 13 was our standard recommendation. It's a working document, always open to suggestions, comments, edits, and improvements. So if you have something or you see something that you think we can add or improve on, please, by all means, comment on it. Thank you. So the system approach, what we did was look at all the different types of systems you would find in many different types of commercial buildings, but anywhere from central air handling units, you know, heat pumps to induction units, fan coils, and what have you, and looked at those to make recommendations on filters based on the systems themselves. Okay. And we also looked at application approach because there's specific functions going on in a commercial office building that might be different than you would find residentially or industrially, like localized supply and exhaust, some internal construction. And I think if you talk to a property management company, it seems to be ongoing all the time. Food preparation and business processing areas. Okay. Just a comment, as 9/11 raised awareness for the building security industry, so too were the ongoing COVID-19 crisis heightened the need for improved air filtration and the importance of indoor air quality. The impact of this heightened awareness will be felt for years to come. The knowledge that SARS-CoV-2 virus is transmitted via the airborne route increased the need for additional operational strategies. And the first strategy is installation of filters and system integrity, a thorough review and inspection of the existing filter hardware and sealing mechanisms by a third party, such as a NAFA certified air filtration specialist, trained on system performance, not just filter performance. So we look at the whole structure, not just the filter, but the filter hardware and what the filter sits in. Okay. And what the inspection entails is that we look at the filter bank. Is it still structurally sound? Are the channels clean? Functioning gaskets, sealing mechanisms intact and operating? And are the right type and quantity of fasteners installed and working correctly? We check all filters, especially secondary filters, for wear and damage and replace as required, and try to identify any chance of potential leaks between the plenum and around the filter frames. Bottom line, we want to guarantee that all the air is going through the filter. So in some cases, we see even like a furnace with no door on it, no seal. Air is going to go around that. In this case, you see that the filters don't come completely to the end of the channel, leaving, in that case, probably 1.5, 2 inch chance for air to bypass this filter. So no gasketing, no seal at the door. In this, on the left and the right hand side, both two well designed and operating filter systems with the air hitting it perpendicular to the filter and providing a very solid seal and hopefully increasing the overall performance of the filter bank. In this case, you see a very high efficient pleated mini pleat type filter, but again, it doesn't come to the end of the tracking, and the gaskets don't seal the filter to the door, allowing for potential and probable ample bypass around that filter. The left-hand side, these are HEPA filters being protected by a filter that doesn't come to the door. So a substantial amount of the air is going to bypass that pre-filter and go directly in the HEPA filter, increasing the pressure drop, reducing the effective service life of that filter, and increasing the overall cost of the system. And system hygiene is just the cleanliness of the filter bank in itself, the coil, and that when you see in this case on the right-hand side, you could probably take a broom and a dustpan in there and clean up the dirt or a vacuum. But this is downstream of the filter. The filter's on the right-hand side if you're looking at the picture, and would indicate that there is bypass in that system, either around the filter or through the filter. So it needs to be identified and rectified. Okay. In this situation, you get this is probably a MERV 16 or MERV 17 filter, very high expensive. Probably $175 Canadian. So I don't know what that makes American, but it's expensive filter that's not sitting in the U channel. The U channel does not extend far enough to actually hold the filter in place. So because these filters are high efficient and have quite a bit of pressure drop on it, you're going to have an inordinate amount of air want to bypass that filter and go around it. And what we've technically done is reduce the filter performance in here. In this case, it says a MERV 14 to a MERV 8 filter system. So you're paying for a MERV 14 filter system, but you're actually only getting performance in the MERV 8 just because the filter doesn't sit in the channel. The channel doesn't extend far enough to hold that filter securely in place. Okay. Very evident here. You can see the air path going next to the door, bypassing the filter and actually leaving a dirt trail where the air is speeding by the filter, completely bypassing the filter system. And in these cases, we need probably more and better gasketing and a tighter seal, more pressure on the filters to hold them in place. And at the end of the day, probably even better hardware from the equipment manufacturer to make sure that the filters actually provide 100% seal. Again, all the air going through the filter. Very common in areas with high moisture is that pleated cardboard filters. Cardboard and water is not a very good combination. Once these products get wet, they never regain their tensile strength or their structure, and they start to collapse, leaving substantial bypass and chances for the filter to rupture. And again, you can see very large hole here, very large particulate, bugs, atmospheric or contaminant just bypassing the filter and entering the system. There's going to be a coil behind that, and I think if you looked at that coil, you would see, staining downstream of this this gap, and also dirt on the floor and that type of thing. So very evident, but also brings to the attention that the need to look at filters on a regular basis, not just at time installation and removal, but throughout the life cycle of the product, so that you can see these things develop and rectify them as they happen. Okay. The fixes are a lot of time very inexpensive, and even in this furnace application, just duct taping the filter, and sealing where the door should have been, and whatever that costs, maybe 12 cents worth of duct tape to hold the filter in place, make sure all the air is going through the filter, and upon replacement, again, just putting some new duct tape in there so the filter sits in place and does what it's supposed to do. Okay. Bag filters are pretty common product in a lot of commercial buildings. In most cases, we like the air to hit it perpendicular, meaning that the air is actually helping in the seal by driving the filter into a gasket and a holding frame, as you saw in the picture back there. But in some cases, they're supplied as a side axis in a U-channel tracking, and there could be, 2 to 20 or 30 filters in a side axis tracking. It's very difficult to get a positive seal between two pieces of metal. So we suggest that even caulking the filters or making sure you have some gasket between the filters, is a good preventive measure to, again, try to make sure that all the air is going through the filters. Okay. Spacers, unfortunate that we have to use spacers, but it seems that side axis tracking with filters in an air handling system, for whatever reason, the math never seems to work out, and there are always 2 or 3 or 4 inches that is left over at the end. We suggest spacers do work just to fill that void. Put them in the far end of the system so that they aren't removed and lost at filter replacement time. And again, just keep your eye on them and make sure that they're still functionally sound at as time goes on. Again, very inexpensive way just to seal that filter bank, make sure the air goes through the filter, not around it. Bottom line, air does not want to pass through the filter and will take whatever means to bypass it. It's very much like water. It's going to look for the path of least resistance. And as we increase in efficiency, the more the air will try to bypass it. The pressure drop as we go from a MERV 8 to a MERV 10 to 12 to 13, the more that air is going to look for a means to bypass that filter. Filter hardware and filter efficiency are of equal importance. There's not enough debate and talk about this. And again, going back to COVID, and I'm going to mention it in a little while, but the rallying cry for MERV 13 in systems, if we just think that we can slide out a MERV 6 or MERV 8 filter in a U-channel tracking and put a MERV 13 or MERV 14 in the exact same spot and get the same performance or the performance you're paying for, we're probably fooling ourselves. Bottom line, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't filter. We have to make sure that all the air goes through the filter. Key changes to the NAFA guideline in 2021 was maintenance was one of the big ones. We recommend having a qualified specialist, NAFA certified air filtration specialist, to inspect the installation for system integrity on at least an annual basis. Get that third-party person in, have a look at the system to try to identify any areas where your system's not living up to that that performance that you paid for. So bring in an outside person. The CAFS are specialists in air filtration, and if we're looking for bypass, it can be found. So education and training. Train your staff on servicing your filtration systems. Changing filters, especially now after COVID, is a specialty. It's no longer that job that everyone's trying to avoid. The NAFA has an excellent certification program, the NCT certified technician. Visit the NAFA site or contact a NAFA member to assist in the education and certification. Get your people trained so that they understand why and what they're doing. Other key changes, an increased attention to HVAC system hygiene and disinfection, clean the units and keep them clean. Recommendation for a negative airspace in the building to triage and treat a suspected infectious individual, such as with COVID. if you had to take someone out of the general population, and I think back to schools when you had the little health room and stuff like that, although it wasn't really designed as a safe haven or a negative air space, but you don't want to have the person walking around or in the general population. You want to isolate them, and having a negative airspace in the building is not that difficult to do, and makes all kinds of sense. Disposal is another issue with infiltration right now, and disposal of spent products need to be performed in a safe manner, protecting the equipment, the building occupants, and especially the technicians performing the work. Again, another push for the training so that the people that are changing the products have a better understanding of why, how, and what they're doing when they're changing the filters. So again, disposal, particulate filters should be assumed to be contaminated with viable organisms. We know SARS-CoV-2 is airborne, ergo, it should be considered that the filter could be contaminated with that at the point of time that it's changed. So it's contaminated with viable organism, possible hazardous in nature, and need to be disposed of in a careful and safe manner. So proper PPE, including gloves and masks, glasses, and coveralls should be utilized. Again, we recommend that technicians performing the work be certified, be NAFA certified technicians. And although we're promoting this as a program from NAFA, we have a lot of people in the industry with their own workers that have this training now, so they have an understanding of what they're dealing with when they're changing filters. And again, when filters are exchanged, they should be disposed of in accordance with all the regulations out there, and they should be treated with care and immediately removed, boxed, bagged, and put in a disposal area. If you do have molecular filters such as carbon, sometimes can be returned to the manufacturer for reactivation. So something to consider. So bottom line, are your workers protective? You want to make sure that they're safe in dealing with the work. And there's a lot of filters out there that are contaminated. And in a commercial building now, with the amount of people that could come to work sick, there's a very good chance that the filter is contaminated too. So, okay. Make sure they have all these the PPE and are wearing it correctly and understand why they're wearing it, especially the masks and gloves and what have you. They need to have this to safely work on the filter system and protect themselves and the environment. Okay. Key changes again for 2021 was looking at UVGI, ultraviolet germicidal radiation has been used for the disinfection of mold, virus, and bacteria for over 70 years. And it obviously really came to the forefront again during the pandemic. So to design and operate this, you need to bring somebody in that has a specialty in it and understands it and is able to, place the units in the correct position and get you the correct amount of units that you need to provide the treatment that you need. Use of UVGI complements filtration. It doesn't replace it. It does one job, and the mechanical filters does another job. Okay. So one thing that got me really interested during the pandemic was the ASHRAE standard 62.1 2019 at the time, but now 2022. And if you read this, it still is recommending a MERV of not less than 8 when rated in accordance with ASHRAE standard 52 too. So 10 years after we first developed the NAFA guideline to commercial office spaces, we were recommend a MERV 13 at that time. We still recommend MERV 13 or better. And unfortunately, ASHRAE is still at MERV 8, though I'm pretty sure. Next slide, Tony. because of the ASHRAE Epidemic Task Force coming out with suggestions of MERV 13 and preferably MERV 14, I would think that future versions of ASHRAE Standard 62 will also reflect that and have at least MERV 13, if not MERV 14 in their systems, which will hopefully change some of the design parameters that will be required when you go from a MERV 8 to a MERV 13 or 14. So, and they also put in care must be taken when increasing the filter efficiency in an HVAC system to verify the capacity of the HVAC system is sufficient to accommodate better filters without adversely affecting the system's ability to maintain the owner's required temperature, humidity, and airflow. Ventilation is every bit as important as the filtration during the pandemic, and to put something in, like there was even lots of comments at the first about putting a HEPA filter in, and which would, dramatically reduce the ventilation into a space. So the balance between airflow and filtration has to be taken into consideration, and sometimes it's very difficult in older units to do that. So, okay. So COVID-19, again, MERV 13 is a rallying cry for consumers, the built environment, and the HVAC industry. Everyone, you could ask people on the street, I think they would have some understanding or have heard the acronym MERV and 13. And if we'd asked that question 3 years ago, people would look at you really funny. So it is the rallying cry, and it is the starting point. But a little more than lip service is given for filter hardware, system integrity, and filter fit. I use this in all my presentations and build it up, but I don't see it being talked about very much, that hand in hand, the filter and the hardware are as equal importance. One without the other doesn't give you that system and performance. So it's really, really important to have both and make sure that they're working as designed. Room air cleaners are the silver bullet to make up for inadequate HVAC ventilation and filter design. Everybody and their dog seem to be making one of these. I don't know how many were sold, but it would probably be in the millions. And to my point of view, it's unfortunate, because if all systems were designed correctly, we might not need as many, at least, of room air purifiers or room air cleaners. So. And health and wellness has replaced energy as the most significant building metric. If you think back to 4 years ago, everything was energy, 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 tenant comfort, and health and wellness probably would have been, third or fourth on the hierarchy of needs in a building. Now it's number one. If you want to get tenants back in your space, you have to prove to them or be competent in providing a level of health and wellness in their space. And I usually like to say in the buildings that I do or I have done work in, is that the air quality in most commercial buildings with 2-stage filtration, MERV 13 minimum, the air quality is of extremely high quality, and probably better than most people are getting anywhere else, their home, the mall, schools, what have you. One of the other issues was just bringing more outside air or open windows. Well, we know in most commercial buildings, that's pretty difficult to do in a sealed, almost controlled environment. We can't bring in a lot of more outside air, and we want to filter that air before it comes into the space anyway. How I'd like this guideline to be used: if you're a member of the filtration industry, I'd like you to read it and feel confident with the guidance. And if not, reach out to us and let us know where it can be improved upon. Use it to reference and promote air filter system validation. We think this is really important, at least on an annual basis. And there's a lot of associations out there that recommend this on a regular basis. A lot of the building guidance from like Well and Reset and what have you, ASHRAE themselves, and are recommended that filter system be looked on a regular basis, and have somebody like a third party have a look at it. Promote the NAFA programs, the CAFS, NCT, and Clean Air Award. and distribute these to the end users with a customized copies with your company's logo on it. This is all available to you if you're part of the filtration industry and a member of NAFA. If you're in the building industry and HVAC industries, I'd like you to read it and kind of feel that the guidance is valid and practical. It makes sense, and there's some guidance you can actually put into practice. And lastly, I would like this document, as well as all NAFA guidelines, to be used and acknowledged as the reference and guidance on all things filtration related. There's a lot of guidance out there that is not coming directly from the filtration industry. We think we have a say in this, and hopefully you think so too. Okay. Final thoughts. And although, like I said, I sat through a lot of webinars and read a lot of information in the past year, and the amount of money that's being set aside, tax incentives and money for allocating for deferred maintenance or replacement of HVAC is, I don't even know what the line is, but it has more zeros than I can even fathom. There's a tremendous amount of money out there doing it. We have a unique opportunity as an industry to participate in the growth, and whether this is for a commercial building or schools or healthcare or continuing care, we have a responsibility to ensure that the filter component is designed and installed correctly and will withstand any future extraordinary events. Let's build for those extraordinary events. Next. It would be a shame we replace old equipment with just shiny newer versions without thought for increased ventilation and filtration capacity. And, you know, again, a lot of the people on this call today, you know, have kids in school. So I'll just reference that, is that if you actually got on the rooftop and saw the age of some of this equipment and how it was managed and maintained, you wouldn't be very comfortable about the air quality of the air coming into the space. But as this gets changed, we have with a window of opportunity right now to be involved in the design and operation of what goes in next. And you do have any questions or comments on this presentation or what I've said, by all means, reach out to me. I'm happy to chat or respond.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very, very much for putting that together. A lot of great information in there. I do think we have 5 or 10 minutes for questions. If you don't mind some live questions, we'll throw them over to you.
Okay.
So first one being a little bit of two-part that we got here, one live and one had got sent in prior. So does adding UVC to MERV 8 filters increase efficacy? And with that said, would a combination of MERV 8 and UVC be comparable to a MERV 13 filter?
Okay, and I had to, because this question came in earlier, and I reached out to Keith Jordan, who is our expert on UVC on the guidelines committee, and he responded in this way. I'll just read his response to the question because I think it sort of covers the answer very well. So it doesn't improve the filter's ability to remove particulate, but it does help reduce the bioburden in the space by disinfecting virus, bacteria, or mold. UVC is an excellent add-on product to filtration, and they work synergistically on different contaminated filters on particulate, UVC on biological contaminants. As well, UVC works great on evaporative cooling coils for airborne virus and bacteria when sized correctly. So it's not going to change the MERV, overall MERV number, but it is going to provide you an increased system efficacy, I guess, would be the best way to do it. Each one doing their own job in there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. What steps can offset the lifespan or cost impact of using MERV 13 filters as recommended by, and hopefully recommended by ASHRAE here soon, on AHUs designed for MERV 8 filters? So for somebody making the switch, how can we make it easier for them to make that switch?
In an existing unit, you know, and I think most filter guys would agree with me, the biggest, I guess, shortfall in most systems is the lack of space. Everything is so condensed in there. It's very difficult for us to go in and upgrade from MERV 8 to MERV 13 in the existing space. If there is physical space and we can get especially depth, like so increase the depth of the filter, we can provide upgraded filter efficiency without impacting the pressure drop too much and reducing airflow volume. So in going from MERV 8 to MERV 13, we need increased filter media. So more square footage of media, either something with additional pleats, preferably I would like to see like just more depth in the filter. So if there was a 2-inch channel, can we change that channel to a 4-inch or 6 or an 8-inch channel? And with that, we would get a lot more opportunities to provide the level of filtration without impacting the, I guess, the volume of air in the space.
Excellent, excellent. One question we got a few times here is, what is your recommendation for frequency of replacing air filters? Time-based or?
I think there's not one easy answer on this because every building's a little bit different. And even like in our part of the world, we can go 6 months in the winter without really changing a filter. And then 4 times in 2 months in the spring when we start to get a lot of just environmental burden. So it goes back to something I said a couple times already. You need to get into units and you need to monitor how the filters load up seasonally and get an idea. So using, just visual is very, very important. Pressure drop would be great if you got accurate readings, but a lot of systems are in variable volume and it's really hard to get a consistent reading that way. So that's another issue. Just doing it on time, I don't think you maximize the usage of the filter, and you make the assumption that all seasons are the same and all contamination loads are the same, and they're not. Especially in our area, they change drastically when we get a snow cover or a spring hit. So,
excellent. Excellent. One of the questions we got here is it more common for commercial office buildings to have single stage filtration or multiple stages of filtration? I know you had touched a little bit on there about you typically see 2-stage filtration in commercial office buildings, but how much does that vary? Is there a standard that you see that is a lot more prevalent?
No standard per se. I think it's just a good rule of thumb. And like the buildings I live in Calgary, we have a very large commercial office space downtown, about probably 40 million square feet of office space. There's a lot. Those buildings, the earliest ones were built, over 30 years ago. They were all designed and operated at the time with a MERV 13 2-stage filter system. And again, because of our contaminant load in the spring and summer, it's great to have a pre-filter in there to protect that secondary filter to make it last long. And 2 of those filters working in conjunction, to me, provide a higher level of filtration than just a single, and replacing it more often.
Excellent. Excellent. What are the top 3 things we should be discussing now that we did not prior to the pandemic? And of course, if you don't have 3, that's all right. Or if it can be summed up into 1 or 2, but and you touch on it again in the presentation here, but when you go into and you're talking to facility managers or commercial office buildings, what are the 3 things you should bring up as far as, life has changed? This is what we need to be talking about.
Yeah, and I think this is a great question, and it's one of the first ones that came in. So I did have time to think about it, and I did put 3 down just because they asked me to. But I don't go in to see any property managers anymore or any operations people, but I do give a lot of talks, and my talks tend to center on the same sort of direction. And the very first one I've already mentioned it too is about the pressing need for is the hardware that's going into a system. And we think about especially a rooftop unit and just visualize that. If you're in the industry, you can easily do that. But that 2-inch U-channel tracking that you see when you go up to the roof is the same U-channel tracking that was there in 1968. That technology hasn't changed at all. But if we think again, if we're going to change out a MERV 6 filter and put a MERV 13 or 14 in that same channel and get MERV 13 or 14 system efficiency, it ain't going to happen. So we need to, as an industry, talk to the equipment manufacturers and the designers of these systems, and also come up with a better locking and sealing mechanisms, because the rooftop units aren't going away, but that technology is well past its best before date. So that one is near and dear to my heart, and I use it in every presentation. The second one is system inspection and validation. If you don't get into the systems on a regular basis, you're missing the opportunity to really maximize the filter's performance, and bring somebody in to make sure that all the air is going through the filter. Get that third party in, somebody that understands leakage and bypass and that type of thing. Make sure your systems are working as well as they can. And third is design flexibility. One thing that I've been commenting on new air handling unit design is adding an extra filter bank. It might sound weird, but just picture a rooftop unit that has an empty bank that you would implement during, for us, it's wildfire smoke season. 7 of the last 10 summers and springs, we've had tremendous amount of particulate generated from forest fires right across Western Canada. But it would also serve during a pandemic. It would be really nice to be able to throw another filter in there and just utilized on demand when you needed it. It would be there. Right now, it's very, very difficult to do that in existing equipment that is out there. So, and I'm looking in the future, when you design a system that goes on a school, have that extra filter bank available. If it never gets used, so what? But if it does, would certainly be nice.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're just about out of time. One more question just to try to, we get some good UVC questions, air quality. One question that kind of stands out here to me, just covering as many topics as possible, is what role do you see in IAQ monitoring devices installed in facilities?
IAQ monitoring devices? Well,
yep.
And again, we didn't touch upon this, and it's not really in the guidelines, but it's like anything. You have to be able to measure to make any changes. You got to know what's going on outside and inside. And one of the things that I didn't talk about here, but I do on my presentations, is that especially during COVID, you could go into a building and you could see people spraying and using all kinds of hand sanitizers, and that was all over the place. It was very visual, but no one knew the quality of air. But you can show the quality of air by having, a screen up there that would give you the exact parameters of what's going on in your space. And this can only be done through air quality monitors. In our little building here in South Calgary, we have a TV screen that gives us an idea of the PM concentration outdoors, PM concentration indoors, temperature, humidity, TVOC counts, CO2, that type of thing. And it's right as you come into a building, and there's no reason that technology is out there. It's relatively inexpensive, and that has to be done and should be done. And in the buildings that do it, I think, have a competitive advantage over the people or the buildings that don't do it.
Absolutely. Just seeing that become more of a standard. Could not agree more. I think with that, I think we ran a little bit over already. Kevin, can not thank you enough for putting on this presentation, answering questions. We got a lot of really good questions we didn't get to. As Kevin had said, his email address is there if anybody has questions, as well as one thing we're going to try to do moving forward as we put these webinars on is post some of those questions out there, and then in the follow-up, answer any of the questions that we can as well. So thank you again for everybody joining. Thank you again to Kevin. Thank you again to Tony. And Tony, I think you have some closing remarks here.
Yeah, just a quick thing. We had tons of questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to grab these questions that we did not answer, and I'm going to roll these over to our next panel here. So what a great segue, right? Well, these three folks are distinguished members of NAFA. They've won an actual award for being a distinguished member. They're all past presidents of NAFA. So some great, super knowledgeable folks who own their own businesses in air filtration. So if Kevin knows the answers, but if Kevin doesn't know, he probably would send it to these folks here, I bet. So Bob, Jim, and Marissa are going to be, it's going to be a great panel. This is December 6th. That's a Tuesday. that is ready to register. So if you go to our website, go to NAFA. Actually, I should have put the link on here, but and actually, if you're on this webinar, we'll go ahead and email you a invite to that here within the next day or so. But go to nafahq.org/webinars, and you'll be able to register for this. I will send out the link to the where you can watch this webinar again. We'll share the slides. And then also we're going to share a link to where you can download the commercial office building guidelines document, and actually have a complete list of several guidelines that apply to different applications. For instance, welding fumes and molecular filtration. We've got one for school, higher education. We've got one for K through 12 schools. We've got one for negative airspace, I believe, for a clean room or for your hospital facilities, right? Those sorts of things. So different applications require different guidelines. And Kevin actually has been involved in several of those. I'm sure he's probably read, or you've been involved in all of them at some point, I would imagine, Kevin, right?
Some point, yeah.
At some point. Fantastic. So please register for that. If we'll try to get to your question if we didn't get your question on this one as well. Thanks so much for listening and for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks so much, Kevin and Jim, for your help today.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.